Hello, you tasty morsels out there. This is Dr. Goodreads, providing you with a very special video. I've made a guest appearance on Lucky 345's channel, and we are going to read books. It's gonna be fun.
There's some fruits that actually grow better in the cold weather.
Young child, I do not know where you have came from, but to be gone. I command you to be gone, young lady. Get the hell out of my house! Thank you. Now let's get some books, shall we? Let's read one of these books. Let's read one of these lovely, lovely books. Can you believe that child came into my house without even wiping her feet? I'm in utter disgust. We're gonna grab ourselves a bee in a jar. It's our reading buddy. Knocked something over, don't worry. He's gonna be our reading buddy. And we're gonna be reading some books. And I'm absolutely serious, we're gonna be reading some books. Let's take this book and sit down. I'm gonna sit down in this chair. And we're gonna read a book. It's a pleasant sight, isn't it? It's my cozy little shack. I didn't ask you, Relic. Maybe I just wanted to hold off on such a special video until I had time to do it. So you can go fronk yourself. How about that? Also, Dr. Goodreads is very, very, very busy. Lucky 345 had some time in his schedule to actually break out Dr. Goodreads. And to actually read some books. So you shut your fronking mouth. Let's read a book. The Battle of Sancretor. I'm reading this book. The Battle of Sancretor. In 2E 852, allied Nord and Breton forces crossed the borders into Cyrodiil and occupied the major passes and settlements in Jural Mountains, making their headquarters for the winter at Sancretor. The Nord-Breton allied Sacred King Cubalcanes. I'm sorry, my glasses aren't very good. Also, the writing in this book is atrocious. New General Talos to assault them in their mountain fastnesses. When they learned that General Talos had mustered an army in the dead of winter, its citadel on a high cliff overlooking the lower city, nestled in a mountain basin with steep, unscalable cliffs in the rear. In the rear. The Cyrodiilic army was small and poorly trained and outfitted with short on rations and unprepared for winter. Campaigning as they raged in units assembled in their lowlands beneath the citadel, the Nord-Breton allies confidently assumed that their enemy had delivered themselves into their trap. The citadel was not only protected by an unscalable cliff in front and unscalable heights in the rear, but the entrance of the citadel was magically concealed under the appearance of a large mountain lake. In the basin beneath the heights, accordingly, the Nord-Breton allies on the left, small force to defend the citadel, descending lower passages to attack and overwhelm the cold, hungry Cyrodiilic forces. Before the Talos' army, leaving no one to expose their springtime descent into Cyrodiilic heartlands. Thus did General Talos lure the Nord-Breton, leaving a weak force in the lowlands to draw out the defenders. General Talos approached the citadel of Sancretor from the rear, descending the supposedly unscalable heights behind the citadel, and sneaking into the supposedly magically concealed entrance to the inner citadel. This remarkable feat is attributed to the agency of a single unnamed traitor. By tradition, a Breton turncoat sorcerer who revealed both the existence of an obscure mountain trail down the heights behind the citadel and the secret of the citadel entrance concealed beneath an illusory lake surface. While the Cyrodiilic army in the lowlands fought a desperate defense against the Nord-Breton sortie, General Talos and his men entered the citadel, swept aside the sparse defense, captured the Nord Breton nobles and generals, and compelled them to surrender. The citadel and their armies that had confused and demoralized Nord captives, already suspicious of the scheming High Rock sorcerer aristocracy and their overreaching dreams of Heartland's conquest, deserted the alliance and swore loyalty to Tiber Septim. The Skyrim generals joined their rank file in Tiber Septim's army. The High Rock Battle Mage command was summarily executed and the captive Bretons imprisoned, sold into slavery. Thus was concerted allied invasion of Cyrodiil failed, and General Talos' army, swelled by the hardened Nord veteran troops that played so crucial a role in General Talos' succeeding campaigns, which consolidated with the Colovian and Nabinian into the core of Cyrodiilic Empire, which resulting into crowning of General Talos and the Emperor Tiber Septim. Historians marvel at Tiber Septim's tactical daring and insulting a fortified mountain citadel in the dead of winter. Oh geez. Against vastly superior numbers, later Tiber Septim attributed his unwavering resolve against overwhelming obstacles to have been inspired by his divine vision of the Amulet of Kings and the Tube of Ramon III. The young Talos may indeed have inspired by his belief that he was fated to recover the ancient sacred symbol of the Covenant and lead Tamriel to the high civilization of the Third Empire. Nonetheless, this should in no way reduce our admiration for the dash and genius of this defining military triumph against impossible odds. I hope you enjoyed that book. We got several others, but we have a little bit more to go. Excuse me. Just need to attend to some things. Maybe get another book while we're at it. I don't believe this is the one that we took off the shelf. I really don't. Before the Ages of Man will be the next book we read. Thank you. I hope you enjoy my lustrous voice in reading these lovely books. In a moment, we'll probably do two other streams a day. This including this one, because we have plenty of time today. I don't know what the other game will be, but we'll try to do something else. But it'll be at our regular time. Anyway, Before the Ages of Man. Timeline Series Volume 1, Before the Ages of Man by Shimmerine. Before man came to rule Tamriel, and before the chronicles of historians recorded the affairs of the rulers of Tamriel, the events of our world are known only through myths and legends, and through divinely inspired teachings of the 9 divines. For convenience, the historians divide the distant ages of prehistory into 2 broad periods of time: the Dawn Era and the Merithic Era. The Dawn Era. The Dawn Era is a period before the beginning of mortal time, when the feats of the gods take place. The Dawn Era ends with the exodus of the gods and the magic from the world at the founding of the Adamantine Tower. The term Merithic comes from the Nord, literally, era of the elves. The Merithic Era is the prehistoric time after the exodus of the gods and magic from the world at the founding of the Adamantine Tower, before the arrival of Ysgramor, the Nord, and the Tamriel. The following are the most notable events of the Dawn Era, presented roughly in sequence as it must be understood by many creatures of the time, such as ourselves. The cosmos formed from the Arbus chaos or totality by Anu and Dadume, Akatosh Ariel formed, and time began. The gods, its Ada, formed. Lorcan convinced, or tricked, the gods into creating the mortal plane, Nirn. The mortal plane was at this point highly magical and dangerous as the gods walked the physical makeup of the mortal plane, and even the timeless continuity of existence itself became unstable when Magic Magnus, architect of the plans for the mortal world, decided to terminate the project. The gods convened at the Adamantine Tower, Direnai Tower, the oldest known structure in Tamriel, and decided what to do. Most left when magic did. Others sacrificed themselves into other forms so that they might stay. The Abolnafe, Lorcan, was condemned by the gods to exile in the mortal realms, and his heart was torn out and cast from the tower, where it landed a volcano formed with magic and the mythic sense gone. The cosmos stabilized. Elven history, finally linear, began. The Merithic Era. The Merithic Era was figured by early Nordic scholars as a series of years numbered in reverse, ordered backwards from the beginning of time. The founding of Camoran dynasty recorded a year 3 arrow of the first era. The prehistoric events of the Merithic Era are listed here with the traditional Nordic Merithic dates. The earliest Merithic date cited by King Barald's scholars was Imi 2500, the Nordic reckoning of the first year of time. As such, the Merithic Era extends from Imi 2500 in the distant past to Imi 1, the year before the founding of the Common Dynasty and the establishment of the White Gold Tower as an independent state. According to King Harold's bards, Imi 2500 was the date of construction of the Adamantine Tower on Balfiria Island and High Rock, the oldest known structure in Tamriel. This corresponds roughly to the earliest historical dates given various unpublished Elvish chronicles. During the early Merithic Era, the Aboriginal beast peoples of Tamriel, the ancestors of the Khajiit, Argonian, Orcish, and other beast folk lived in pre-literate communities throughout Tamriel. The Middle Merithic Era, the Aldemari mortals of elven origin, refugees left their doomed and now lost continent of Aldemaris, also known as Old Albalnafi, and settled in southwestern Tamriel. The first colonies were distributed at wide intervals of islands along the entire coast of Tamriel. Later, inland settlements were founded primarily in fertile lowlands in the southwest and central Tamriel, where the beastfolk encountered the elves, the sophisticated, literate, technologically advanced Aldemari cultures, displaced the primitive beastfolk into the jungles, marshes, mountains, and wastelands. The Adamantine Tower was rediscovered and captured by Durini, a prominent and powerful Aldemari clan. The Crystal Tower was built, Somerset Isle, and later White Gold Tower in Cyrodiil. During the Middle Merithic Era, Aldemari explorers mapped coasts of Varvendefell, building the first era High Elven towers, and Aldredania, Balfell, Telruben, and Telmora in Morrowind. It was also during that period that Aleb, wild elven settlements, flourished in the jungles surrounding the White Gold Tower, present-day Cyrodiil. Wild elves, also known as the Heartland High Elves, preserved the Dawn Era magics and language of the Balnafi, ostensibly a tribute land to the High King of Eilenor. The Heartland's long lines of communication from Somerset Isles. Sovereignty effectively isolated Cyrodiil from the High Kings. At Crystal Tower, late Middle Merithic era, is the period of high Velothi culture. The Chimer ancestors of the modern Dunmer, or Dark Elves, were dynamic, ambitious, long-lived elf clans devoted to their fundamentalist ancestor worship. The Chimer clans followed the prophet Veloth out of the ancestral elven homelands in the southwest and settle in the lands now. Known as Morrowind, despising the secular culture and profane practices of the Dwemer, the Chimer also coveted the lands and resources of the Dwemer, and for centuries provoked them with minor raids and territorial disputes. The Dwemer, free-thinking, reclusive elven clans devoted to the secrets of science, engineering, and alchemy, established underground cities and communities in the mountain range, later Velothi Mountains, separating modern Skyrim into Morrowind. The late Merithic era marks the precipitous decline of Velothi culture. Some Velothi settled in villages near declining and abandoned ancient Velothi towers. During this period, Velothi high culture disappeared. Vardenfall lands, the earliest Dwemer freehold colonies, date from this period. Degenerate Velothi devolved into tribal cultures, which in the time evolved into the modern great houses of Morrowind, or persisted as the barbarian Ashlander tribes. The only surviving traces of this tribal culture are scattered Velothi towers and Ashlander nomads on the Vardenfall Island. The original First Era High Elven Wizard towers along the coast of Tamriel also been at this time. It was also late Merithic era that pre-literate humans, the so-called Nedic people, from the continent of Atmora, also Atmora or the Elderwood, and Aldemaris, migrated and settled in northern Tamriel. The Nord culture hero Ysgramor, a leader of the great colonizing fleet to Tamriel, is credited with developing a runic transcription of Nord speech based on Elvish principles, and so Ysgramor is considered the first human historian. Ysgramor's fleet landed at Sarik Head at the extreme northern tip of Skyrim's Broken Cape. The Nords built there the legendary city of Sarthal. The elves drove the men away during the Night of Tears, but Ysgramor soon returned with his 500 companions. Also during the late Merithic era, the legendary immortal hero, warrior, sorcerer, and king, variously known as Delinal, Whitestrake, Barald Barry, Breeks, Ysmir, Hans the Fox, wandered Tamriel, gathering armies, conquering lands, and ruling, then abandoning his kingdoms to wander again. Thank you for joining me in reading Before the Ages of Man in Skyrim. Let's go for another 2 books, shall we? I hope you all enjoyed half of this, and there will be another half real soon. We need to go pick up another book. How was that, Mr. B? Did you enjoy those books? I bet you did. You're upside down in a glass jar. Of course you enjoyed it. Thief by Raven. If the reader has not yet had the pleasure of reading the first volume in this series, on the life of Eslaf Errol, Beggar, he should close this book immediately, for I shan't recap. Well then. Yeah. Frustration. I don't know if I have Beggar here. Frustration. We got lucky. We have Beggar. Beggar by Raven. Eslaf Errol was the last of the litter of the five born to the queen of the prosperous Nordic kingdom, Erolgard Lafprikopa, and her husband, the king of Erolgard. Votlaf, during pregnancy, the queen had been more than twice as wide as she was tall, and the act of delivery took 3 months, and 6 days after it had begun. Dear God. It is perhaps understandable that the Lafrikopka elected upon expelling Eslaf to frown, say good riddance, and die. Like many Nords, Vitlof did not care much for his wife, and less for his children. His subjects were puzzled. Therefore, when announced that he would follow the ancient tradition of his people, of Atmora, of the following his beloved spouse to the grave, they had not thought they were particularly in love, nor were they aware that such a tradition existed. Still, the simple people were grateful, for the little royal drama alleviated their boredom, which was and is a common problem in the more obscure parts of northern Skyrim. Why the northern part? Never mind. Particularly in wintertime. Be gathered his household staff and his 5 fat bawling little heirs in front of him, and divided his estate to his son Yenop. He gave his title to his son Laernu, gave his land to his son Suiabu. He gave his fortune to his daughter, gosh dang, Lysifitra. He gave his army to Yetlaf's advisors. He suggested he kept the inheritance together for the good of the kingdom. But Votlaf did not particularly care for his advisors, or the kingdom for that matter. Upon making his announcement, he drew his dagger across his throat. Why? One of the nurses, who was rather shy, finally decided to speak as the king's life ebbed away. Your Highness, you forgot your 5th child, little Eslaf. Good, Fitlaf groaned. It is somewhat hard to concentrate with blood gushing from one's throat after all. The king tried in vain to think of something to bequeath, but there was nothing left. Finally, he sputtered away. He sputtered irritably. Eslaf should have taken something and then died. Oh my gosh. This is a hard read, apparently. That a babe a few days old expected to demand his rightful inheritance was arguably unfair, but so Eslaf Errol was given his birthright without his father's dying breath. He would have nothing but what he had taken, since no one else would have him. The shy nurse, whose name was Drusba, took the baby home. It was a decrepit little shack, and over the years that followed, it became more and more decrepit. Unable to find work, Drusba sold all of her furnishings to buy food for little Eslaf. By the time he was old enough to walk and talk, she had sold the walls and the roof as well, so they had nothing but a floor to call home. And if you've ever been to Skyrim, you can appreciate that. That is scarcely sufficient. Druzhba did not tell Eslaf the story of his birth, or that his brothers and sisters were leading quite nice lives with their inheritance. For, as we have said, there was a rather shy. She was rather shy and found it difficult to broach the subject. She was so painfully shy, in fact, that whenever asked questions about where he came from, Druzhba would run away. That was more or less her answer. Everything to flee. In order to communicate with her at all, Eslaf learned how to run almost as soon as he could walk. He couldn't keep up with his adopted mother at first, but in time he learned to go toe heel. If he anticipated a short but fast sprint, and heel toe, it seemed Druzhba was headed for a long-distance marathon flight. He never did get all the answers he needed from her, but Eslaf did learn how to run. The kingdom Erelgard had, in the years that Eslaf was growing, became quite a grim place. King Yanaf did not have a treasury for Soyobud, but had been given that. He did not have any property for income. Lerno had been given that. He did not have the army to protect the people. And Lasifitra had been given that. Furthermore, he was but a child. All decisions in the kingdom went through Yenup's rather than corrupt council. It had become a bureaucratic, exploitive land of high taxes, rampant crime, and regular incursions from the neighboring kingdoms. Not a particularly unusual situation for a kingdom of Tamriel, but an unpleasant one nonetheless. The time finally came when the tax collector arrived for Druzhba's hovel. Such as it was, to collect the only thing he could, the floor, rather than protest. The poor shy maid ran away. Eslaf never saw her again. Without a home or a mother, Eslaf did not know what to do. He had grown accustomed to the cold open air in Druzhba's shack, but he was hungry. "May I have a piece of meat?" he asked the butcher down the street. "I'm very hungry." The man had known the boy for years, often spoke to his wife about how sorry he felt for him, growing up in the home with no ceilings or walls. He smiled at Eslaf and said, "Go away, or I'll hit you." Eslaf hurriedly left the butcher and went to a nearby tavern. The tavern keeper had been a former valet in the king's court and knew that the boy was by right a prince. Many times he had seen the poor, ragged lad in the streets, and he sighed at the way fate had treated him. "May I have something to eat?" Eslaf asked him. The tavern keeper asked the tavern keeper. "I'm very hungry." "You're lucky I don't cook you up and eat you," replied the tavern keeper. Eslaf hurriedly left the tavern. For the rest of the day, the boy approached the good citizens of Erelgard, begging for food. One person had thrown something at him, but it turned out to be an edible rock. As night fell, a raggedy man came up to Eslaf and, without saying a word, handed him a piece of fruit and a piece of dried meat. The lad took it wide-eyed, and as he devoured it, bethanked the man very sweetly. "If I see you begging on the streets tomorrow," the man growled, "I'll kill you myself. There are only so many beggars we of the guild allow in any one town. And you make it one too many. You're ruining business." It was a good thing Eslaf Errol knew how to run. He ran all night. Eslaf Errol's story is continued in the book Thief. That was a depressing book, I must say. I'm sorry that you had to hear that, Mr. Bianajar. I'm very, very sorry that you had to hear that. We have one more book, and then we're going to end this, and then probably head on over into Sims and try to make something of our lives in that game. Try to make ourselves a better individual. So yes. Moving on, to Thief. Thief by Raven. If the reader has not yet, we've read it! I will tell you this much, gentle reader. When we last saw Eslef, he was a boy, an orphan, a failed beggar, running through the wild winter woods of Skyrim. Away from his home, Erelgard, he continued running, stopping here and there, for many more years, until he was a young man. Eslef discovered that among the ways of getting food, asking for it was the most troublesome. For far easier was it finding in the wilderness or taking it from unguarded market stalls. The only thing worse than begging to get food was begging for the opportunity to work for the money to buy it. That seemed needlessly complicated. No. As far as Eslef was concerned, he was best of a scavenger, a beggar, and a thief. He committed his first act of thievery shortly after leaving Erelgard, while in the southern woods of Tamburkar, in the rugged land of Mount Jensen, just east of the village of Horabeld. Eslef was starving, having not eaten anything but a rather scrawny raw squirrel in 4 days, and he smelled meat cooking and then found the smoke. The band of minstrel bards was making camp. He watched them from the bushes as they cooked, and joked and flirted, and sang. He could have asked them for some food, but so many others had refused him before instead. He rushed out and grabbed a piece of meat from the fire, wincing from the burn, scrambled up to the nearest tree to devour it, while the bard stood under him and laughed. "What is your next smooth thief?" giggled a fair, red-headed woman who was covered with tattoos. "How do you intend to disappear without us catching and punishing you?" As the hunger subsided, Eslef realized she was right. The only way to get out of the tree without falling in their midst was to take a branch down there where it hung over a creek, and it was a drop off a cliff about 50 feet. Hey, Tails, how are you doing? Hey, Tails, I want you to know something. I was wondering if you'd see this. There you go. Congratulations, Tails, you've earned moderator on the channel. "You do know how to fall, boy," called out a young Khajiit, but a few years older than Eslef, thin, muscular, graceful in his slightest movements. "If you don't, you should just climb down here and take what's coming to you. It's idiotic to break your neck when we just give you some bruises and send you on your way." "Of course, I know how to fall," Eslef called back, but he didn't. He just thought the trick of falling was to have nothing underneath you and let nature take its course, but 50 feet up when you're looking down is enough to give anyone a pause. "I'm sorry to doubt your abilities, Master Thief," said the Khajiit, grinning. "Obviously you know how to fall feet first with your body straight, but loose to avoid cracking like an egg. It seems you are destined to escape us." Eslef wisely followed the Khajiit's hints and leapt into the river, falling without much grace, but without hurting himself. In the years that followed, he had to make several more drops from even greater heights, usually after a theft, sometimes without water beneath him, and he improved the basic technique. When he arrived in the western town of Jellenheim, on the morning of his 21st birthday, it didn't take him long to find out who was the richest person, most deserving of being burgled. An impregnable palace in a park near the center of town was owned by a mysterious young man named Suubwo. Eslef wasted no time in finding the palace and watching it. A fortified palace, he had come to learn, was like a person, with quirks and habits beneath its hard shell. It was not an old place, evidently. Whatever money this Suubwo came into was fairly recent, and it was regularly patrolled with guards, implying that the rich man was fearful of being burgled. With good reason. The most distinctive feature of the palace was its tower, rising 100 feet above the stone walls, doubtless giving the occupant a good view, defensive view. Eslef guessed that was it. Subuo was as paranoid as he guessed him to be. The tower would also provide a view of the palace storehouse. The rich man would want to keep an eye on his fortune. That meant that the loot couldn't be directly beneath the tower, but somewhere in the courtyard within the walls. The light in the tower shone all night long, so Eslov boldly decided that the best time to burgle was by the light of day, when Sabuo must sleep. That would be the time the guards would least expect a thief to pounce. And so, when the moon's sun was shining over the palace, Eslov quickly sealed the walls near the front gate, and waited hidden in the crenellations. The interior courtyard was plain and desolate, with a few places to hide, but he saw that there were 2 wells. One the guards used from time to time to draw up water and to stake their first. But Eslov noticed that guards would pass by the other well, never using it. He waited until the guards were distracted just for a second by the arrival of a merchant in a wagon bearing goods for the palace. While they were searching his wagon, Eslov leapt elegantly, feet first, from the wall into the well. It was not a particularly soft landing for as Eslov had guessed. The well was not full of water, but gold. Still, he knew how to roll after a fall, and he didn't hurt himself. In the dank subterranean storehouse, he stuffed his pockets with gold and was about to go to the door which assumed he would lead to the tower when he noticed a gem the size of an apple, worth more than all the gold that was left. Eslov found room for it down his pants. The door did indeed lead to the tower, and Eslov followed its curving stairwell up, walking quietly but quickly. At the top he found the master of all the palace's private quarters, ornate and cold with invaluable artwork and decorative swords and shields on the walls. Eslov assumed the snoring lump under the sheets was Suubo, but he didn't investigate too closely. He crept out the windows and looked out. It was going to be a difficult fall for Certes. He needed to jump from the tower past the walls and hit the tree on the other side. The tree branches would hurt, but they would break his fall. And there were a pile of hay he had left under the tree to prevent further injury. Eslov was about to leap when the occupant of the room woke up with a start, yelling, "My Jim!" Eslov stared at him for a second, wide-eyed. They looked alike, not surprising since they were brothers. Eslov Errol's story is continued in the book Warrior. And that is going to be the end of this video. This has wreaked havoc on my voice. I've been doing this for a solid 40 minutes. Dr. Goodreads is going to take a nap. And Lucky345, I hear, is going to be playing Sims 4 in a moment, so don't want to miss that. He's going to learn how to raise a family, potentially, and he's going to make a character that looks like him, and find a girl that'll actually love him, like he wants in his real life. So that's coming up real soon, and Rocket League will be after that, so don't miss it. As for Dr. Goodreads, this is the end of this video. Thank you for tuning in. My doctorate is getting dirty. I need to go clean it.